Welcome back to my Final Fantasy XIV drama series. Today's drama story is about casual to competitive raiding. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. This drama story revolves around someone by the name of, let's call them, K. I started playing Final Fantasy with K since around Heavensward. I met K through mutual friends in real life. We started playing together and ended up raiding together. We didn't have much friends and we were pugging mostly. Things were going decently as we were fairly new players with not much knowledge of raids, savages, and even MMORPGs for that matter. But we had fun learning strategies and having fun learning the ins and outs of gearing, food, pots, and rotations. I played various of jobs and ended up healing a lot more for our group pugs in Savages with Kay and some other friends. Mostly because healing role was lacking players and I didn't hate playing healer. It's a fun role to me to this day. We spent a good amount of time, even up to Stormblood, doing raids together in pugs. Things started to get a bit out of hand around here. Kay got really into parsing and logging, and would now reject to play with certain people in pugs if their logs were less than ideal, despite people being able to clear it. I chalked it up to just wanting an easier time clearing and wanting better players overall, but some comments were starting to get pretty negative. Eventually, our friend group expanded and we all decided to play together when the game exploded in popularity in Shadowbringers. We eventually formed a static group with new and old friends. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I made a lot of new Final Fantasy friends this way. I was really happy at this time in the game. People were nice, and I finally felt like I had a large group of people to play with versus the few I hung out with before. For once, I actually stayed subbed to the game for more than a few months at a time just to keep playing with people. Endwalker came, and we were all so excited for the new expansion. It was the end of an era for the story, and I was elated to finally see the end of the story. But all that was on Kay's mind was raiding. All they cared for was the new raiding tier. They wondered when it was going to come out and begin. I found this interesting, and I was asked if I would join at the very start of the expansion. I told Kay I was down, but I'd rather not play healer this time around. I had done it for so long and I wanted to try something new. Tanking or DPS for once. But nothing set in stone for me just yet on what exactly that job would be. I mostly wanted to do the story first, and I left it at that and said let's talk about this closer to the release time of the raids. As we approached the release of the raid, Kay didn't reach back to me for the raids. None of my other extended friends did either. It turns out Kay formed another group with people and nobody in that group wanted to heal. And when I said I didn't want to heal either, they basically cut me out to find someone else. Nobody reached out and asked if I wanted to play some other role. They expected me to just heal, as I have always done so, since I was the most willing out of the group and the most flexible. I can't say it was fine. I felt a bit hurt and betrayed. This was someone I played with for so long, for many years, and they dumped me so fast and so easily because I refused to play healer again. I pugged that tier alone and finally got to try playing DPS, which was pretty fun as well, and I had a good time. While hearing the constant barrage of Kay saying how pug groups are bad and how people who pug are bad, as well as how pug strats are so bad. Everything to Kay was bad. I also kept hearing about how well they did in parsing on FF logs and kept trying to compare their parse numbers and kept telling me how someone in their raid group who played the same job as me was doing better than me. It felt awful as I was sitting there in a pug. And when I remind them, hey, I'm pugging, you know, it's brushed off as we don't mean you are bad. But I left it at that. What more can I say? We were all friends in real life, and this is just a Final Fantasy argument. There was a point between where Kay's group wanted to do an older ultimate to get a feel to prepare for the new ultimate, Dragonsong War. They selected Alexander, aka T. One of the DPS in their static had wanted a break between tiers, so I was asked if I wanted to sub in. I decided why not? I always wanted to try an ultimate fight and went along with it. Things were going okay. I was doing my part as DPS and we eventually cleared. But there was a lot of bitter resentment and backhanded comments along the way. Like people were upset it took us so long. Or some people in the group were a bit slower in understanding some mechanics. To me, I spent time with people and a clear is a clear and I got a shiny weapon out of it. I didn't think too much of it until the Dragon Song War came out and the DPS they had in their static originally was still on a break, so I was filling in still. And boy, staying for that was a mistake. The massive amount of comments directed at various members of the static for not being good enough or forgetting mechanics was crazy to me. Alas, I decided to leave. A lot of the comments weren't directed to me as I wasn't doing too poorly, but enough was enough. I said I had some timing issues coming up and I don't think I can continue, and I left it at that. I agree with the OP, like, oh, it's so hard to see toxicity in the chat when you're in a static. Like, whether you see it in the chat, whether you hear it on voice, it makes the vibe so weird and awkward. Just better to like not even have any of that, honestly. And if someone really is holding you back as a group, just talk to them privately and tell them that whether you want them in or not anymore. That's like how you deal with it, and so that it doesn't lead to someone just eventually just screaming or yelling at them in the chat. This is the kind of stuff that keeps me wanting to do high-end content. Like, you'll encounter people like this for sure because they get frustrated, and I've encountered some people like that in raiding. I see it as like they're so frustrated, like they probably had a bad day or like something is going on in their life or like work, but then it gets released into the game, and the game is supposed to be fun. The game is supposed to be fun for all of us. Like, we're dedicating our spare time to doing this and playing the game and learning this raid, and it can definitely be unfun when someone is just like getting angry, and it's like, this shouldn't be happening. We don't want our fun time to just be work. But so far so good. I like everyone I raid with now. You just have to not play with those kind of people or fix those kind of issues within a static. But it seems like he's going through that right now with his friend. He's learning that his friend is actually very, very toxic in the span of a few years of doing different sorts of endgame content with them. Things took another turn for the most current tier. The group they formed for the last tier had someone that mentioned before the tier began they would not be available for the first 3 weeks of when the Savage comes out, quoting a personal commitment. Again, everyone in this group are friends, in and out of the game. When they said they weren't available when the Savage drops, they were kicked out of the static. I was uncomfortable hearing this and confronted Kay on how they can treat their friend like this and why they didn't just wait for the 3 weeks. But it was like talking to a wall. They were fixated in clearing the Savage tier and acted like friends were just a tool to that target. I reflected on what had happened. Was it really FF logs that started all of this? How did Kay go from pugging to saying nasty stuff about people who pug? How did a casual group of friends who are raiding become so cutthroat to kick a friend out because they had something to do for the first 3 weeks during a Savage release? To be fair, when it comes to raiding, if I also had a friend who said that they weren't able to make the first 3 weeks of the Savage raids, I probably would also replace them. So I can't fault Kay for that, because there should be no hard feelings, really. Like, the friends should understand, like, they have commitments. They shouldn't have 7 people waiting for them for 3 weeks when, like, this is new content in the game and everyone is very excited to play the game. So yeah, you don't want to be that person that makes 7 people wait for you to do the thing. Just get replaced. And also, if you were to come back, like, let's say you got a sub for 3 weeks and you came back, you'd have to make people wait for you to learn everything they've learned in 3 weeks. So that's going to lead to more drama later down the road. So I think it's best if this static has a goal to finish their raid at a certain time, like they want to do it as fast as possible, then it makes sense to not have that friend who can't join for the first 3 weeks. And it should be, yeah, no hard feelings. I wish I could say this ended up with a happy ending. Raiding really did turn this game into a nightmare for me. I played this game for so many years and have so many memories of it. I even stayed subbed for between Shadowbringers and Endwalker for those many dry months of content because I loved hanging out with everyone. I have since mostly quit the game. It has gotten too competitive and toxic for me, and I don't know if I'll go back. I still talk to Kay about other things, but kind of ignore whenever Final Fantasy is ever brought up. I do still wish the best for them, but as it stands, even if I do return, I don't know if I want to raid with them ever again. The end. It's sad that like he quit because, you know, of the raiding toxicity and his friends. Because like if he realized that this is not something he wants to do, he should just like stop and like do the things he enjoys. So if he does like the social aspect of the game and just like hanging out with friends and doing like less high-end content things so that he stays away from the toxicity, he could still do that. He could do housing, he could do other things. There's so many options. There's so many things to do in the game, right? Other than savages. So it sucks that he completely like quit because of that. Everyone experiences, well, not everyone, I can't say everyone. A lot of people experience the toxic side of raiding, and it is horrible. Once you experience that, you know, okay, this is not what I want, and you start avoiding certain people like that. So I wish he just like started avoiding those kind of people instead of just quitting entirely. When we're talking about like the high-end content raiding, right? Like savages and ultimates, they bring out people's true competitive side out. You'll see like what kind of players they are, whether they are casual raiders or competitive raiders. And if you have friends in the games who raid with you, you will learn like, okay, this friend of mine is a casual raider, this friend of mine is a competitive raider, and you start like trying to find people who are like you when you raid. So if you want a casual group, you can find a casual group. If you want a competitive group, you can get a competitive group. And competitive doesn't mean toxic, right? Like you can find a good competitive group that isn't toxic. That's what I always look for. I look for competitive that's not toxic. Like we all make mistakes, it's normal. In the end of the day, this game is an MMORPG and people flex in MMORPGs, so they want the best of the best equipment. That's why some people have those goals in the rating statics to finish it really fast and want their time to not be wasted and be efficient and show off their gear in the first few early weeks. That's why like I can see why they couldn't wait for that person for 3 weeks, because they wanted that gear. They wanted to show off and flex. That's basically what MMORPG is in a nutshell. Just showing off what you got. Like you do that already with your glam, right? You might be wearing like all your endgame content already, and it's like, okay, you just put some glam over it. You may be showing off your mounts or your minions or your house or the weapons from the savages or the weapons from the ultimate or your titles. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention is he did say like, is this all because of FF logs and stuff that started all this? I do think FF logs does have like a bad side, a bad thing like about it. People can get carried away and be more toxic because of the website. I know that when I first jumped into the game and started playing savages, and I was in a Discord and I was just doing what is it called, pandemonium. This is not even savages, this is pandemonium normals. I was just doing that with friends, and I had created this private Discord for all my friends to do it. And some of my friends invited their friends, and I was like, yeah, sure, invite them. If they want to play this content with us, sure. And we all did it together, and at the end of it, I was so relieved, like, oh my god, I did it! I cleared it! Like, on my mind as a new player, I was so happy for myself that I cleared that raid. And then what someone did straight away was they posted the parsing in the Discord general channel for everyone to see. And I was like, oh my god. My happiness after that was just ruined. Because like it went from being so ecstatic about just clearing it with my friends into I actually did trash. It's like you're being graded on a school paper, right? You actually did D. That's your grade, D. And that's how I saw it. I was like, oh my god. And the person who posted it was literally at the top. They had the best parse. And I was like, I see now. You want to look better than us. That's how I took it. So I remember messaging them because I was new, and a bunch of other people from my community was also in that Discord who were also new, and I didn't want to overwhelm them with all this like, what is this? We're being graded now, and it'll be publicly shown in this Discord. I messaged the person who posted, I said, please refrain to, or I think I wrote in the general, please refrain from posting that stuff right here. And I stated the reasons, because new people are going to get so overwhelmed and not want to see that when they're just literally learning it. There's so many things to learn when you're starting raiding, right? You have to learn your job. You have to learn all the little things about your job, how to do the mechanics, you don't want to learn how to do it efficiently yet. You just want to learn, yeah, you're just trying to learn like the basics and not about being efficient with your job yet and with the mechanics. So like seeing all that is so overwhelming. And the only person that can help you with learning is yourself. It's all in like this Discord called the balance that everyone uses, but you have to like go into the balance yourself, go into the area, read it yourself, try to understand it yourself. If you have questions, yeah, sure, there's some people that will answer the question, but mainly it's all yourself. So that's my experience, and I was super overwhelmed also by FF logs. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, because I'm a competitive person. So seeing it felt like someone was like publicly humiliating me in my own Discord. it felt like that. Like, you got a D, FYI, and I got an A. I was like, I did not like that. That was my first encounter when I just wanted to be happy. And then when my niece started playing Final Fantasy XIV, literally, she told me the same thing. She had her own friend group in the game. She was like, oh my God, what is happening? And they were basically analyzing everything that she was doing as a white mage. And that got very taxing on her. They were like, oh, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that move wrong. And she's just learning the job. So she actually doesn't play anymore. But I think that she might come back, but I don't think she'd ever go back to like high-end content raiding. I think people need to be careful about when new players are touching raids, because what they can say and how they nitpick can definitely affect whether this person keeps going or stops. Like for me, I am the kind of person that if someone nitpicks me and says like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this, I did feel like I wanted to give up at one point, but this is like the natural process I go through. I'm like, oh my God, I want to give up. And then I'm like, no, I want to get better. Like, and so like, I'm almost like, I'm going to be better than them. So I tell myself, I'm going to be better than them. And that's my motivation. So that's how I like overcome that obstacle. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this Final Fantasy XIV drama story. If you have any of your own drama stories that you'd like me to share and read out anonymously, feel free to reach out to my Discord, discord.gg/Pathra. And a big thank you to my kind members who support my YouTube content.